it's that time. It's time for Training Tuesday. So it's Tuesday. It's 6 o'clock on the East Coast because that's where I'm at. And we are here tonight to talk about increasing your confidence and expanding your opportunities with one key secret. There are probably lots of ways you could do this, but there is what I consider one key secret that often gets overlooked and ignored. I think sometimes because it can be a little bit uncomfortable that we acknowledge this secret, but it's an important one. So I want to talk a little bit about that and how do we use this secret in a way that doesn't feel icky. I think that's kind of key also, is making sure that we are comfortable with this secret because it is an asset that we all have, that we all already have and can use. And oftentimes we don't, and especially as women, we don't use it to the best of our abilities because there's a little bit of that feeling that maybe it's icky. But it's so important. It's so important to your success and to not just your success as a leader at work, but just success too for quality of life, for where you want to be and who you want to be. So we spend a lot of our time, most of us spend most of our time at work, whether we're working from home or working in an office with people. We spend our time focused on this activities, which means we spend most of our time with the people that we work with. That's who gets the chunk of our day. If you're like me, then, and I think a lot of women are, I'm just going to say, I think a lot of you are like me, then when you're climbing the corporate ladder, and I know as I was climbing the corporate ladder, this was a big one for me, I was a bit intimidated by the people around me. And by that, I mean my peers. When I got promoted into management roles and executive roles, I was intimidated by my peers and by the people above me partly because they were male, right? I come from tech industry, so I come from a very male-dominated industry. They were male, they were older than me. All of them were older than me. They were more experienced than me. And they were men. And I was the only woman. And not only woman, I kind of felt like a girl because I was younger than them. And so I spent most of my time feeling like I had to prove myself and I had to work really hard and I had to show that I deserved this and that I was allowed to be here and I was meant to be here. So I spent a lot of my time being very serious female executive. And I didn't really spend much time at all kind of cultivating those relationships and growing my relationships with the people who were on either side of me or above me because I was too busy trying to get my team to work and trying to make sure I deserved this space I was taking up. And when you're so busy focused on making sure you deserve the space that frankly you've already been given, the space that you have, your vision becomes a little myopic and you're focused here instead of focusing on what's happening around you. And it's what's happening around you where things are growing and moving and shaking. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about where we put our focus and most importantly, who we put our focus on. That's our secret for tonight. It's really who we put our focus on. So before I dive in, I want to say hello and welcome to Training Tuesday. I'm happy to have you guys here. I see some of you have already said hello in the chat. So hello to Joyce and Jackie and Anna. It's nice to see you here. If you have not joined us before on Training Tuesday, then welcome. My name is Natalie Hahn. I am CEO of Dirty Girls Consulting, and we are here every Tuesday night for a different free training in this group on various topics of leadership and confidence building and imposter smashing kind of stuff. So tonight's key secret is going to tackle a little bit of the imposter smashing stuff because that's usually what stops us. We're also going to talk about a little bit about energy and energy leadership and what that means. And hey, it's Miss Tracy. It's good to see you guys. So thank you for saying hello. If you haven't yet, please jump in and say hi, say where you're from. Let me know if you guys have any questions as I go. I do try to keep my eye on the comments. Sometimes they scroll past me, but I do try to keep an eye and address any questions. Share your experiences. These are always way more fun when we're actually talking to each other and I'm not just talking at you. So I want to dive in, right? As I was saying, when I was climbing the corporate ladder, I got really good at managing my team, right? So I had my lessons and challenges on team management, but I really got very good and very practiced at what do I need to do to support my team, making sure the people who worked for me, that they were supported, that they had the tools that they needed, that they knew I was engaged, that I understood, that we had clear goals, that I was clear on what my kind of leadership superpower was. I'm really good at the ideas and seeing opportunities and the big picture. It's what I love about marketing is I get to look at the market and I get to kind of take a look at where can we make a difference and how do we get in there and make that happen, and putting those kinds of plans together. It's lots of fun for me. But I also know what I'm not so good at, and that's the details. If you want a detailed Excel spreadsheet plan for how something's going to be executed, I can do it because I've had to do it and I've trained myself to do it, but I do not enjoy that work at all. So like event management, events are a big part of any marketing strategy, but I do not love the details of event management. So I hired people on my teams to do those things, right? So I got very good at the team management for the team that worked for me because I was filling in my weaknesses with people who could balance me out and had better strengths in certain areas than I did. I worked really hard to hire people who were smarter than me because I figured out early on in my career, hire the smart people because they not only do smart work, but they make you look smarter than you are, which is always a good strategy in advancing your career. So I knew that, and I was spending a lot of time with my team that reported to me, as I should have been, because when you're a leader and a manager, that's what you should be doing. But I was not spending time with my peers as much, the other department leads, the other executives. I certainly wasn't spending as much time managing up and cultivating relationships with the people who were above me because I was intimidated, right? In my head, I was still proving that I deserved this role, that I deserved this title, that I deserved to be on the executive team, that I earned this spot. So, and hey, Julie, it's good to see you there. And Jackie, exactly, who loves events? There are people who do. There are people who make a career out of it. And I admire that so much because it takes so much organization and project management as well as creativity to put on a really good event. And I love the creativity side of the event and not at all the planning. So anyway, that's a sidetrack. The key is I was focusing for a big chunk of my career. I was focusing all of my energy on making sure my team was happy and that the people underneath me in the organization were doing well. And that was great. That did well for me, and every leader needs to focus there. But I wasn't cultivating my peer relationships or my upward mobility relationships. And it was a boss who finally told me, listen, it's great that your team loves you, but they're not your team. The team that you're thinking of as your team is not your team. They're the people who report to you. They're the people who are executing what you need to get done to be successful. And it's great. It's great that you have a good relationship with them. It's great that you've figured out who to hire and the secret sauce to making things happen. But your team, it's the people around you. It's the people who have equal responsibility as you inside this company to making sure we hit our goals. It's the people above you who are responsible for making sure you have what you need to achieve your goals. So he completely reframed the team aspect, that my team wasn't the people who worked for me, although certainly I had responsibility and care for them. But I needed to build my team in terms of who was supporting me from a peer standpoint, who had the same shared goals and objectives as me at the level I was at. Now, organizations are a hierarchy. So I want you to keep that in mind as I'm talking about this, because I'm not saying you don't befriend the people who work for you. You absolutely do. But you also have to befriend the peers who are equally responsible for your success, who have equal amount of responsibility towards the goals, and the ones above you. Because we forget in our drive as working women who are trying to prove that we've earned this spot. We're fighting that imposter voice that says, you don't deserve to be here. You better show them. You got to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard to prove that you earned this. We're so busy caught up in that we're not leveraging what's right there with us, that's waiting to be leveraged. Did you ever go to a work event? This is where I ended up. Going to the Christmas party, going to whatever celebratory corporate party we had to go to, and watching who hangs out with who, who's hanging out and being chummy with the CEO, who's hanging out and being chummy with your boss, who are you hanging out and being chummy with. And I found myself hanging out mostly with the team that reported to me, and occasionally with 1 or 2 people who were more or less in my peer group. But when I started watching the people who were the most successful in the company, who were they comfortable hanging out with? The rock star salesperson who every year made President's Club, every year got to go to that trip to the Caribbean or Paris or Hawaii. That guy, and it was usually a guy at the companies I worked at, but that guy was perfectly comfortable knocking back a couple beers and telling jokes with the CEO. That guy was perfectly comfortable hanging out with the other senior vice presidents. His title might have been senior account executive, but he didn't care, because he learned how to cultivate relationships with the other people in the organization who shared some passion and some interest and who were all about how do we grow this business, which was his goal. I don't mean to make it sound mercenary, because yes, cultivating those relationships becomes strategic to our career path, right? If we want to get promoted, we need the upper echelons to like us, to know us, to recognize us for our talents. We need that. That's just smart career management. But if we're really at a place that's a good fit for us, if we're really doing work that's meaningful for us, among our peers and among our executives, we're going to find people we actually like. Wouldn't that be something? So I'm wondering how many of you are familiar with the crab bucket. I want to talk about the crab bucket for a minute. You guys, for those of you who've been on my training Tuesdays before, you've heard me talk about this, but I think it's a really important concept for us to keep in mind. So the crab bucket, I will just share this really quickly. The crab bucket is this concept, right? That if you're staring into a bucket full of crabs, what happens? There's always one crab that's trying to climb up the side of the plastic bucket and hook its claw and get the hell out. There's always one. And what happens is as that crab, climbs up and hooks his claw over the edge of the bucket, the other crabs do what? They come up and they grab him and they pull him back into the bucket. We do this to ourselves sometimes, and certainly people around us will do it too. If you're in a work environment, especially one that you've been at for a while, so if you've been at your job for more than a few years, you've developed a sort of group, right? You've developed people that you hang out with, which is great. But what can happen in the crab bucket is when we try to advance ourselves, when we try to move beyond where we're at, to strive for something bigger, something higher, there's a group of people around us who are the crabs, who say things like, are you sure you should go for that? I'm not sure you're qualified. Do you really think it's a good idea to ask for that raise? You might make your boss mad. I don't know if you should change jobs. That's probably not a great, you don't really have that skill set. That's probably not a great fit for you. So they take where we're trying to go next and they diminish it. Because subconsciously is the realization that if you get to that next step, you've outstepped them. And we all like to be in our comfort zone. And me being in my comfort zone means you need to stay exactly where you are because that's where I'm comfortable with you. So a lot of the times when you're striving to do something new or different, and you're asking for the raise or the promotion, or you're putting a boundary in place that you need different time, right? That you need more time for this activity and less time for this activity. Or you're going to get more education for yourself. You're going to go get more training, or you're going to go get a different degree, and there are naysayers around you. It's really important to remember that a lot of the time, the naysayers, they're reflecting what they're comfortable with. They're not necessarily reflecting what's good for you. Only you actually know what's good for you. So I like to keep the crab bucket analogy in mind, because for those of you who have been in situations where you've been promoted over your peers, right? You were all one team and then a job opening comes up and you get promoted and now you're the leader of the team. You know how uncomfortable that can feel, because everybody else who didn't get promoted or didn't expect you to get promoted, they're in the crab bucket. You know, you were more fun before you became my boss. You know, I was able to tell you more things before you got promoted. Those kinds of comments. Those are crab bucket comments. We need to beware of the crab bucket because we ourselves are comfortable in the crab bucket. And when we're comfortable sitting exactly where we are, we don't go after the goals that we want to go after. We get a little bit of imposter syndrome that says, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are going after that promotion? What makes you think you deserve that? Who do you think you are applying for that job? What makes you think you're qualified? We question ourselves, and then other people in the crab bucket echo our own internal doubts. And what happens? We don't apply. We don't go for it. We don't ask for it. So the crab bucket is very much a slippery slope on the sides of that plastic bucket. But I want you to look at your heroes. I want you to look at the women in your personal life or out in the public realm, right, who you admire. Look at the ones who you admire the most in the world. And especially the public figures, who do they hang out with? They hang out with other public figures. I want you to look at your mentors, the ones in your life who are 2 or 3 steps ahead of you on the career ladder. Who do they hang out with? It's not an accident. It's not an accident that people who are famous, people who are wealthy, people who are highly successful in their careers hang out with other people who are famous, wealthy, highly successful, or all three. It is not an accident that if you look at the profiles and you follow the social media of some of your favorite, let's just say self-help gurus, right? Brene Brown is one of mine. I love Brene Brown. Well, guess who she hangs out with? She hangs out with Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. She hangs out with Glennon Doyle. She hangs out with Oprah, right? The heavy hitters hang out with other heavy hitters. Your mentors do the same. We reflect and feed off the energy of the 5 closest people around us. And I'm going to say you could even expand that to 10. But if you look at the 5 closest people around you, who are they? Who are they? And what role do they play in your life? Are these people who get you energized and excited and are part of this expanding, growing future that you envision for yourself? Are they the kind of people with the kind of energy that you want to have in your life? Because when you meet those like-minded people, holy cow, it's cosmic, right? When you meet somebody who is at your same level, at your same wavelength, is going after the same kind of goals with the same kind of passion, and you can be on parallel tracks, you can be on different tracks, but when you're at that same place of investment in yourself and investment in your future, you have an amazing partner right there to support you on your journey, to hold you accountable, to do all the things that keep you motivated and moving forward, which is very different energy than when it's Cousin Betty sitting in the background telling you, who do you think you are because you went and got an education? We're not obligated to keep the Cousin Bettys in our crab bucket. And we are not obligated to stay in the crab bucket. That's our imposter voice that speaks up and tells us that. Now, this is not the secret that people like. The secret to my success is what? It's the people around me. First of all, that feels terrible because it feels like I'm using people, which is not true, by the way. And second, what does that mean about the people in my life who are not the high energy people I connect with? So it's not a secret that people like, which is why I said at the beginning, we overlook it. We intentionally will choose not to go down this path. We will intentionally overlook the fact that who we surround ourselves with matters. We told our kids this all the time when they were growing up, and then as adults we ignore it. But all the time when our kids, be careful who your friends are. Who your friends are reflect who you are. It's still true today. It's still true today. Your network of the 5, 10, 15 people closest to you are a direct reflection for you of how far and how fast you can go. So if you are surrounding yourself with people who are very comfortable in the position they're in and are comfortable with you in the current position you're in, and your current position is not where you want to stay, you have a disconnect. And you have a crab. Look at the world's most successful leaders. They weren't just thrown together because, right? Because they were all in politics, because they were all in drama. They may have met each other through some of those circles, but a lot of them met each other beforehand. Because in exploring their networks of like energy, you come across people. And when they meet you where you're at, you maintain those connections. Those are the connections that help you move forward. Those are the connections that bring you high performance energy. And that's what I'm talking about. We're talking about how do we perform at our highest level? How are we the most successful for ourselves in our goals, in achieving our dreams? What do we need to do? We need to surround ourselves with the support system that gets us there. So, good energy feeds us, it fuels us. It's what we call in energy coaching, energy leadership, we call it anabolic energy. It's those high levels of energy that motivate us, that fuel creativity, that keep us moving forward. In our crab bucket is our catabolic energy, the lower levels of energy that drain us, that take from us, that make us feel like we need a nap. After you ever have somebody visit and after they leave, you're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted from that. Yeah, catabolic energy. So, finding others with your same energetic level of high performance, of ambition, of goals is important. And you will find that on the teams that report to you, on the people below you in the hierarchy, right, who are working with you. You will find it there. But you will also find it among your peers and among the executives. And that's where you need to start looking, especially if you're in a corporate environment. You need to start building out the people you hang out with at work to be more your peers and more of the rank above you, whether it's an executive rank or some other tier. You want to look laterally and at least 1 and 2 steps above you as you're cultivating relationships at work. These are the people you're going to bounce ideas off of, who are going to make your ideas bigger and better. And then instead of just having an amazing impact on your team, it's going to have an impact across multiple teams. This is how we grow. With people who get you, who get the journey you're on, who get the struggle that it is, and who support you in your success. So when you look at your network, when you look at both the 5 closest people to you, but I'm going to expand that to like 10 to 15 people. Look at the 10 to 15 people who you feel closest. Because we're going to take family. We're going to take your 5 favorite family members, and of course they're at the top. And you don't necessarily trade them, but keep in mind that our family members are usually exactly who's in our crab bucket. Our family members are usually, the crab bucket's usually filled with family because that's where a lot of our old patterns and our old habits come from, right? Our old views of who we are and who we can be typically come from there. But get past the first 5 that you want to keep. And then let's move to the next 5 and 10. And let's look at who cheers me on and supports me no matter what. Who's that BFF that says, I don't care what you're going after, I don't even understand it, but you go. You go, girl. You still want them. You still need them. They're still an important part of your support. And when they're cheering you on and supporting you, even if they don't fully get what you're doing or where you're at, they're not in a crap bucket. They're part of, in your networking circle, you need to have cheerleaders. Truthfully, we often have more cheerleaders than anybody else, but you need cheerleaders. You also need influencers. Influencers are where you start looking to your peers and above, especially in that 1 or 2 levels above you. Who can influence the direction you want to go in? Who can influence your boss? Who can influence the company? Who can influence other people even outside the company to help you get where you want to go? We need influences in our network. People who we like, who we trust, who maybe aren't at the BFF cheerleader level, but certainly know us and like us also, so that when we reach out to say, hey, I'm looking for a new job, or hey, I'm looking after that promotion, you've got somebody who can help influence that outcome and get you where you want to go. We need allies. We need allies. Allies are not always people we're closest to, but they have a common goal with us. And in building a common goal together, we can usually build a pretty strong bond. So maybe you don't have a lot personally in common with Carol in accounting, but if you and Carol in accounting both have a mission in terms of, I don't know, metrics and dashboards for measuring the success of the business that you both want to implement and move forward, you can foster a pretty strong bond. That means in other situations, you can still help each other. You can be allies working together towards a common goal. You need to have allies in your network, people who are going to work right alongside you, right? Side by side, not below you, not above you, but side by side to help you get where you need to go. And you need to have mentors and coaches, people who are that 1 or 2 step above you, who are sharing their experience, their intuition, their knowledge, their wisdom, and the steps they took to get where they went, and helping you along that path so that you can avoid some of the obstacles that they face. So you learn how to navigate the tricky politics. So your homework, should you choose to accept it, if you're going to take advantage of this one super secret, and I call it a super secret because it's not actually secret. We all know that networking and the people we surround ourselves with have an influence over our lives. We just don't always choose to actively pursue it, to actively cultivate it, to create a network we want. When you're at a point in your personal development where you start looking at the people in your life who cause you grief at Thanksgiving dinner, and you're suddenly like, yeah, that cousin Betty, she's not coming to Thanksgiving dinner anymore. I don't need the stress. It's kind of the same idea when it comes to career management. It's the same idea. We start putting distance between ourselves and the people who are pulling us down or holding us back. And we start connecting. We start making bridges with people who are going to help us move forward and get where we want to go. With people who we like, who we admire, who we respect, and who we trust. That's who we're forging relationships with. So I'm not talking about schmoozing for the sake of schmoozing and getting yourself moving forward, because that's not fun for anybody. That's where it feels icky. I'm talking about building genuine relationships with the people who you can connect with to help you move forward. About looking at, who do I really want to be friends with? So the next time you walk into the corporate Christmas party, which this year a lot of companies are having actual in-person holiday parties again, right? When you walk into the corporate Christmas party and you look around, you can say hi and spend time with the team that reports to you. But you can be equally comfortable walking across the room to your boss or peers of your boss and hanging out with them for a little bit too. And being comfortable in who you are and what you bring to the table, but building those relationships so that you're having more fun at work and you're feeding off the energy of people who want to do the same thing you do, which is they want to grow, they want to advance, they want to move their careers forward, and you are both in a position to help each other. Keep in mind, networking is reciprocal. We think of it as icky because we think, I don't want to ask that person a favor, I don't want to do that thing, I don't want to come across as just needing something from them. It's reciprocal. They want to be your buddy too. They want to be your pal too. Because they want to call on you 2 years from now to say, hey, I'm looking at a new job. Would you be a reference? Hey, I'm thinking about this, applying for this promotion. What do you think? Would you support me in this? They need you just as much as you need them. That's the piece I think we forget the most. So your one super secret is your network. It's the people around you. It's identifying who's in the crab bucket. It's being willing to put distance between you and the crab bucket people. And it's the willingness to be a little bit vulnerable and put yourself out there to start cultivating the relationships with people who maybe previously intimidated you, maybe previously just didn't feel accessible, but also maybe we didn't try. All right, so that is Training Tuesday. If you guys have any questions about what I'm laying out there in terms of how we connect with people and how we use this secret of connection to help us make our careers go faster, go forward, upwards, faster, all that good stuff, you can drop it in the chat or you can reach out to me separately. That's all good. I am going to just take a minute tonight to say, I don't know if you guys saw it in the group. I put a post in the group, I think yesterday. I have a new class starting, which I'm extremely excited about. So I have a new class called the Lotus Leadership Program that is launching, I think, next week, in a week. If you'd like details on the class and how to join, just hit me up, drop the word Lotus in the chat, and I will share the full details with you. But the highlight is it's a 6-week leadership course. And what we're focusing on are some leadership fundamentals to some extent, but also taking it a little further and a little deeper. You always hear me refer in Dirty Girls to digging deeper, because that's what we do. And it's taking your leadership skills through the 5 pillars of Lotus, right? Lead with intention, lead knowing your leadership strengths. Own your experience, your knowledge, and intuition, right? Own what you know. Speak up. Trust your voice, trust yourself, trust the teams that you build. Understand is all about setting boundaries. How do we set boundaries? How do we hold those boundaries? How do we even know what our boundaries are? And shift. So those are the 5: lead, own, trust, understand, shift. And shift is all about changing the behavior, taking the action. So this is a 6-week leadership course. It is focused on how do we move from where we are now to getting closer to our goals in 6 weeks. How do we take action that helps us feel more confident in who we are and how we lead, that gives us actual skills and strategies for how we're going to manage the situation we're in right now, whether you love your job or whether you're looking for a new job or whether you're looking to launch a business, right? Whatever your career goal is, where we start in this program is anchoring you down in the foundation of your leadership and your leadership style, and then take you through the skills and strategies and behavior shifts that need to take place for you to skyrocket yourself to the next level of your career. So that's the Lotus Leadership Program. Like I said, that's a quick nutshell. Got tons more details I'm happy to share with you. It's a 6-week program that kicks off next Tuesday. We will be meeting on Tuesday nights. It's a group coaching program. So you'll be getting online trainings, and we'll do group live coaching online with me. To help you work through all these great leadership skills and strategies. It will be fun. So for those of you who've been through my course before, I had Accelerate Your Career. This is a updated, enhanced, new version of the Accelerate Your Career course. And instead of 10 weeks, we've condensed it down to 6 weeks of the best stuff in that course. Again, to accelerate your career, to get you where you want to go and get you there faster. So drop the word Lotus if you'd like to learn more about that. In the meantime, think about your network. Think about who's in it. Think about the 5 people closest to you in the crab bucket. And reach out to me if you want to talk further about how you cultivate your network better and if you want to learn more about the program. Thank you, as always, ladies, for joining me on Tuesday night. I love Training Tuesdays. It's my favorite night. I hope you all have a fabulous evening. Have a great night.